Hey guys, it's Maymay and welcome back to Why and How to Start Paper Crafting in 2023. Now, today we're going to start with the where to start. I'm excited about this one. This is one of my favorite topics, and I think you guys will enjoy it. The reason I really want to get it across to you today is because I have started incorrectly so many times, and I've ended up being that person who has all the gear and no idea, or idear if you're from the South, and I don't want us to be that way, okay? So I want you to learn from the beginning the best way or the best practices for getting started, or at least what I've discovered, okay? So let's start like this. We're gonna answer 5 questions, all right? I've got my notes down here, so I'm gonna look down periodically for my notes, but we're gonna start with question number 1. Question number 1, and the most important question is, what is your craft? Or where do you wanna start, okay? Now, why is this important? I told you that recently I started a new quilting journey, right? I've never quilted before. It was something new I started. And in doing this, I decided I was going to be very conscious of what I do in this process so I can bring it to you guys, because you guys tell me all the time, I just don't know where to start or what to do. And I thought, I'm going to bring this to you guys to try to head off mistakes. Well, I started my journey and I made mistakes. Let me tell you what I did. I said, I want to quilt. And I looked at quilting in the big picture. Okay, there's a lot of different ways to quilt, but I didn't know that. I just went, I want to quilt. So I would watch, S-E-W. So I'd watch a video, I'd want the product. I'd watch a video, I'd want the product. I went to the store, I got the product. I have all kinds of product because I thought, I'm going to need this tool eventually. I'm going to need this fabric eventually. I'll just grab it. Well, a couple months into that, I saw a video called Quilt As You Go. Well, this is a whole different concept. I'd never seen this before. And I thought to myself, you did it again. You jumped the gun. You should have done your research. Had I researched and discovered that Quilt As You Go was a thing, I would have leaned into that thing. And that's all I would have focused on. I would have bought the batting for it, the tools for it, the fabric for it, the patterns for it. And that's what I would have leaned into, because I really like that process, right? But for paper crafting, it's very much the same thing. Just as quilting is this title like this, paper crafting is just a title that overarches so many different types of crafts or things you can craft. Let's talk about a few. Card making, scrapbooking, 3D projects, ATCs, that's a whole craft in and of itself. What else? I thought of one earlier, mixed media. Like there's so many different ways to take your paper crafting. And what I want to encourage you to do, number 1, is find the one that is for you. Now, this series is one a week. We're doing one video a week, okay? And you're thinking, gosh, this is going to take a long time for me to learn how to do this in 2023. But the truth of the matter is, after you watch a video, I want you to do the research. So this next week, while you're waiting on the next video, spend some time doing some research. Watch some videos. See what speaks to you. Maybe you're into fancy fold cards. Maybe you're into folios. Maybe you're into full 12 by 12 scrapbooks. Maybe you're into mixed media projects that you hang on the wall that start with paper. Who knows? Let's find it. Oh, maybe you're into electronic cutting crafts. We'll talk about that one too. So number 1 question is, what is your craft? I want you to spend this week discovering what that is. Next question. Okay, don't run away yet. Don't go start watching videos yet, because the next questions we're going to answer are going to also help you in discovering what craft is for you, okay? Question number 2 is, what do you want to accomplish with your craft? All right? So like I told you, for me with paper crafting, the reason I wanted to take up paper crafting, or what I wanted to accomplish, was to take up time. My brain was running all the time and it was not healthy for me. And I was coming out of depression and anxiety, and I even was in the midst of agoraphobia during all this time, and I needed something to focus on. So I went to paper crafting. I felt like it was something I could do to use my hands and to use my thoughts to kind of redirect where I was and to give myself a more relaxed evening, something to relax me in the evening. And that's exactly what it did. Now, where quilting is concerned, I wanted to accomplish something different, which is interesting because you probably have a different reason or a different accomplishment you're looking for. For quilting, for me, I have some free time on my hands. My kids have grown up. I told you before, I lost my mom, my best friend who I spent a lot of time with. I wanted to fill some time. And quilting is something I've always been intrigued by, so I thought I will take up that hobby and see how that goes, and it's been great. But what are you looking to accomplish with your crafting? Are you looking to fill time? Are you looking to try something new? Are you looking to start a business? Are you looking to maybe expand on what you already do? Maybe you're like me and you already have paper crafting on lock and you want to start another craft. Maybe you have quilting on lock and you want to start paper crafting. Think about what it is you want to accomplish. This will help you narrow down the field of vision as you start to look. Question 3 leans right into that one, okay? And that is this. What do you want to do with what you're creating? What do you want to do with the crafts that you make? This is important because I hear so many people say to me, I'm making this and I have nobody to give it to, or I'm making this and it's filling up my house, or what do I do with all of these things? I want you to think that out first, okay? Let's start. I made some bullet points. Number 1 is this. For me, it was just a craft. I needed to craft. Like I said, I wanted to have something to do with my hands. I really didn't care what I was going to do with the finished product. I knew I had people to give things to and they would always accept it. So I really didn't care about that in the beginning. If I were starting over though, I would look at these other topics. Number 1, do you want to make gifts? Maybe that's what you want to do it for. Maybe you have a lot of people in your life. Maybe there's an opportunity at your church. Maybe there's an opportunity in your local community. There's somewhere you see a place where you can make gifts to encourage and lift people up. This is a good reason to start. Maybe that's your reason. Maybe your reason, number 3 bullet point for me, is maybe your reason is you want to sell your craft. Now, this is a whole different ball game, okay? If you're wanting to sell your craft, we need to do a whole other video series on that. But you need to know that if you're looking to sell something, you want to make sure whatever craft you take on is a sellable item, right? So you have to pay attention to that. What is your plan? My next bullet point is maybe you just want to make some stuff for your home. I've been there and I've done that. I've decorated my home with crafting more times than I can count, okay? So maybe you're just wanting to fill your space or brighten up your space with crafting. It's important that as you start to look for what the craft is for you, you decide what are you wanting to do with these finished products. Otherwise, you'll start crafting and have a stack of finished products and don't know what to do with it. And in no time, listen, in no time, you'll be burnt out because you'll feel like you are overwhelmed by what you're doing. So have an outlet for it. And you might be the outlet. It is perfectly fine to craft for yourself. Y'all need to know that. It is perfectly fine to craft for yourself, okay? But if you're able to and you can craft, use some for yourself and share with others, that's also a perfect opportunity. Number 3, in discovering what your craft is, okay, is this. What kind of space and what kind of environment do you have? Remember, for me, I had very little space. Not very little. I actually had a pretty good space. I had an eat-in kitchen area, right? But my environment was such that I had to be a quiet crafter, see? So I had to look at my space and my environment, and I want you to do the same. Now, if I were starting today, just like when I started with quilting, I have a whole bedroom. I guess that's the perk of your kids growing up and moving out of the house. I had a whole bedroom that no one but my dogs lived in. My 4 girls live in that room, and I thought, I'm going to share this room with you girls, and we're going to quilt. And that's what I did. But that's a very different thing. A lot of times you don't have that kind of space, and your environment will kind of dictate what you can do. What do I mean by environment? Let's say you are like me and you needed to craft quietly. Well, then I didn't take on power tools and sanders and spray painting. Remember, we talked about that in part 1. But I was able to take on a trimmer and some scissors and a ruler and glue, right? Because it was quiet. Let's say that you live in an area that doesn't have good Wi-Fi. This is a huge thing to look at when you're starting to craft, depending on what your craft is. If you're starting to craft with something that requires internet service on the regular for you to do what you're doing, your environment does not speak to that very well, and you want to think of that ahead of time, okay? Let's say maybe you have to craft in a shed. Maybe think about this. Maybe your shed out back is perfect for you to craft in, but you've got to consider the climate of it because it's going to depend what papers and glues and things you can put in there. Does that make sense? So think about your environment and your space when you're also looking. This is key, I think, because the cool thing about it is this. Paper crafting, by the way, can be done anywhere. In the car. I've crafted in the car. You can craft on a coffee table. You can craft on the floor. Paper crafting can be done just about anywhere, and it fits most environments. Not wet environments, obviously, because it's paper, but most environments. back to my little points here. I want to look at my bullet points. My cousin, this is a bullet point I have for you. My cousin crafted on a TV tray. So you can't really say you don't have enough space, and she didn't do paper crafting. I remember we were on a trip one time, and she had these little ornaments she had painted for all of us, little glass ball ornaments, and she had hand painted them. And I was like, oh, Trace, I love these so much. And she's like, I love them too. I can paint them sitting in front of the TV. I bring my TV tray in. She's like, everything I need sits on the TV tray. And her husband's a lot like mine. Whenever we're home at night, he wants to be in the same room together. He does not care if we're watching the same thing or whatever, but he wants to be in the same room. And her husband was the same way. And she said, as long as I have my TV tray and I was painting while he was watching something, we were happy. And so think about that. Think of it. Look for crafts that you can do in a small space on a TV tray or whatever fits your environment. My last bullet point under this topic, which is what kind of space and environment do you have, is this. You don't have to have a craft room. I want to make sure I tell you this. You don't have to have a shed. You don't have to have a craft room. You don't have to have any of that. You can craft anywhere. You just need to make sure the craft you choose to be yours fits that space. I know you watch on YouTube craft room tours and things like that, and I love them. I love to watch a good craft room tour, and it does make me aspire to have a better crafting space. But you don't have to have that to start. And I would venture a guess that most of those people that have those craft rooms and things like that didn't start there. And that's exactly what I want to encourage you today. Start. You don't have to start in the big space. If you end up with it, great. And if you don't, you're still enjoying your craft. That's the point, enjoying the craft. Our last question to cover today is this, and it's an important one. You ready? What is your budget? I know I hate the word budget too, but we do have them. We have limitations, okay? It's important that you think about that. You can craft expensively and you can craft inexpensively. It can be done. How do I know? I have done it both ways, okay? When I first started crafting, I didn't have tools. I didn't have money. I was raising 4 boys. Every penny we had went to tennis shoes and uniforms and school dances, and everything went to that, right? Nothing was extra. So I had to find ways to do it. And I started paper crafting, finding ways to get my supplies. I remember saving packaging, cereal boxes, and anything. There is nothing wrong with that. And some people, even though they can afford to buy other stuff, still do that. The reason I transitioned out of like cereal boxes, not because I don't think they're completely usable, but the process for me was more than I wanted to do anymore. Now that I can afford to buy some chipboard, my kids are grown, they're out of the house, I can buy chipboard, which was a luxury for me for a long time. I like to use it. It's so quick and easy. I can just grab it, cut it down, and use it. Where with my cereal boxes, I had to layer them and glue them depending on what I was using them for. And this is just one example. But did it change my enjoyment of crafting? Not at all, because my enjoyment of crafting was the time spent and the finished product. You can craft with anything, okay? Paper craft or otherwise. The only time your budget will hinder you, okay, is if you want to do something like have an electronic cutting machine. They're expensive. Sometimes machines like die cutting machines, like, you know, the roll through, the crank through, or the electric ones, those range in price so dramatically that can also hinder your budget. All you need to do is start where you can. Let me tell you, there was a time I didn't have an embossing machine. I didn't. And when I'm talking embossing machine, I'm talking about the crank kind. I didn't have one for a long time, okay? So I would do like cheater embossing. And what that means is I'd use my embossing tool and a mouse pad, or I would use my embossing tool and my scoreboard, and I would make lines or whatever and make it look like I had an embossing folder, and it worked just fine, and nobody doubted it. And to be honest with you, I think it enhanced my crafting. It made me better at what I do because I had to learn more techniques that way. So don't think you can't do what you see other people doing. A lot of times, now you know this about me. Let me say this about me. I'm a tool lover. I'm always going to try to get the new tool, and I'm always going to try to show you the new tools because some of you are tool lovers too. Some of you are not, and I know this, and that's fine. We can still craft together. You'll just craft your way, and I'll craft my way, right? If you can afford the tools, I think you should invest in them. It makes life easier. This is in anything, okay? Yesterday, good example. I'm trying to hang a picture on the wall at my house. I thought I'll just use a thumbtack. I have a thumbtack. I have thumbs. I have the installment equipment, which is my finger, right? And I thought I'll use that. Well, the thing I wanted to hang was too heavy for that. I spent so much time looking for a screwdriver. Are y'all the same way in your house? Finally I didn't find a screwdriver. I found a drill bit that had a screwdriver bit on the end, and I used my hands, and I thought to myself, this is why I like tools that do the job. I could have been done in 5 minutes, but I couldn't find the right tool for the job, right? I love the right tool for the job. I get that from my father. He instilled that in me. Dad had a tool for everything. He just did. And I'm looking around my room thinking, I love this tool and this tool and this tool. But I'll tell you something. I remember distinctly not being able to afford a crocodile. Now, if you don't know what a crocodile is, I've got videos explaining all that. You can check that out. But I wanted a crocodile. And y'all, at the time, they were like $19, maybe $24. And now you know how much everything has gone up. I couldn't afford one. It was a luxury it was the same as a diamond ring where we were concerned. We couldn't afford it, okay? And I remember putting that one thing on my Christmas wish list. I remember distinctly saying, I would love to have one of these. Well, my son Jared worked that out. I don't know how he did. I don't know if him and his dad did something. I don't know. I just know under the tree from Jared was a crocodile. And it was like he gave me a diamond. I was that excited to have this tool, and it opened my crafting up. The things I could do with that crocodile, right? And I didn't even know how to use half of it, which you guys know, we've talked about that. But I remember how exciting it was to get that one tool and add it to my stash. And I've just been collecting over time the same way. So I hope you can find a way to do that too. So what are your big takeaways today? Really quick, here they are. Number one, find your craft. You don't have to do every craft, and you don't have to do every paper craft. Find the one you want to focus on to start with and add to that over time. Number two, discover what you want to do with your craft. Know what you're going to do with it when it's finished. Where's it going to go? Where's it going to land? Number three, know your space and your environment. This will help you when you're finding what your craft is. And number four, our least favorite, know your budget, okay? You may not be able to sit down and go, here's my budget, but know what you can afford and stay within that. The more, it will take time, but the more you stay in your budget, the more you add to your collection, the larger it'll get over time, and the more you'll have to craft with. I hope this gets you started on a very good path. I hope you are enjoying this series. I have so many more videos to bring you, and I know you want to get to what kind of products do we need for paper crafting, and we're headed there. You'll see more of that in the next video, products and things that I suggest, and I know that's what you want to see, so it's coming. Thank y'all so much for your response for part one. You guys blew my mind. I was so surprised how many of you are wanting to start paper crafting and want to know where to start. So I'm hoping this is helping you. In the comments below, tell me what you need to know. Share with me. Did you make the same mistakes I made? Did you nail it? If you nailed it, I'm so proud of you, because I did not. I have so many things that I didn't use and never will use. So share with me. A lot of people did in the first video, and I love hearing your story. So share that with me here too. All right, guys, until next Monday, go find your craft. Talk to you soon. Bye now.